Because I think sometimes we come out with the numbers and people don't realize that only a handful of these mass shootings actually rise to the level of national coverage.
In the past month alone, Anne-Marie, there have been 54 mass shootings nationwide.
Also putting a damper on this holiday, rain and snow hitting the East Coast, West Coast, and parts of the Midwest, forcing many people to spend Christmas indoors.
An icon of capitalism, the New York Stock Exchange is partially reopening its floor today for the first time since March 20th.
The president said his plan won't infringe on the Constitution, right?
Well, that's true, Tom. The president says nothing in his proposal interferes at all with the Constitution. And there are some conservatives who seem willing to work with him on some points.
JBS said that it was working with third parties to get back online. JBS also said that it would spare no resources in fighting the threat.
The New York Attorney General's office confirms it's opened a criminal investigation into the Trump Organization. I'm Laura Podesta at Trump Tower in Manhattan with details as to why the AG's office has decided to expand this from a civil probe. Fighting continues to ramp up between Israel and Hamas. I'm Laura Podesta at the United Nations with details on the violence and the emergency meeting held among world leaders aimed at brokering a ceasefire.
Here in New York City, the traditional Thanksgiving Day parade will still go on, but it has been scaled back. There will be no adoring crowds cheering on the iconic balloons, floats, and performances.
The Colonial Pipeline is back up and running, but many may still find massive lines at gas stations. I'm Laura Podesta with details on why problems should continue at the pump for several days. For some, the rush to buy fuel is conjuring up memories of stocking up on supplies at the start of the coronavirus pandemic.
I'm Elise Preston with a look at how vaccination efforts are behind a return to pre-pandemic days this holiday weekend.
But the president of the European Commission did not give the paper a timeline as far as when Americans can travel, Anne-Marie.
All right, Laura, well, before we let you go, let's just turn back to the new CBS.
Super stressful, super stressful.
Benny Ramos has managed to keep his Manhattan restaurant Añejo afloat, thanks in part to outdoor dining. But when the weather turned colder, he knew this covered patio wouldn't be enough.
It gets very windy, and still having to keep two sides of the structure open definitely makes it a challenge, and doesn't make it cheap.
Those still open for business are warming up to the idea of heat lamps as a way to sustain outdoor dining this winter. But with so many restaurants now forced to consider heat lamps, demand is soaring, and prices are too. Ramos says he's already spent $2,800 on the lamps and hundreds more on propane tank refills, as well as employee training and certification. For Ramos, the heat lamps may be the investment that keeps his employees working.
Seeing that these guys can provide for their families, that's what keeps you going.
A temporary lifeline that's badly needed. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Yoga instructor Bethany Lyons has a lot on her plate. She launched her own company during the pandemic, teaching online classes daily. She says healthy snacking is a must.
I eat raw almonds, I eat roasted almonds, I eat salted, unsalted, any kind of almond that there is.
Those nuts may also be helping her sleep at night.
So you're a deep sleeper. Do you think your diet contributes to that?
100%. I think sleep and our energy and all of it is very holistic.
Lyons also prioritizes exercise. She says those good habits help her rest a little easier. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Offering mulled wine is more than just keeping up with trends. Bars and restaurants are adapting their menus to hold on to business.
It's a survival mechanism.
Chris Stang, CEO of Zagat Restaurant Guides, says hot cocktails are part of that survival.
There's been a lot of necessary, I guess what you would call innovation.
In New York, that includes this 19th century flaming whiskey concoction at Dante's. Kate Smith, CBS News, New York.
Sertikowski says when he heard about Dr. Mayorkin being called into urgent care, it set off an alarm because of the potential contact with COVID-19 patients. So he went to court.
I was pleasantly surprised by the judge's decision.
Child custody is a thorny issue across the country, especially during this pandemic.
New York City plows were out all night clearing streets and sidewalks. For tourists from Puerto Rico, the snow was a happy surprise.
This is the first time I've seen snow in my life.
These Alabama visitors built a miniature snowman.
It was amazing. There's so much of it. All Alabama gets is like an inch.
New York City got its biggest snowfall in nearly 4 years, with up to a foot of snow in some neighborhoods. Because millions of people are working from home, it's not the commuter nightmare this kind of storm would have caused in the past.
But the weather did disrupt handling of the pandemic, forcing at least 8 states to temporarily shut down coronavirus testing sites. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
It was my older brother, Tom. He was very sick. When I would visit him occasionally, he would talk about things that didn't make sense to me. He struggled. He lived at home at first, and then he went out on his own. But he had reoccurring episodes. So bottom line, I got a call. And my brother killed himself. I've always felt I could have done more. And I'll never do it again. I'll always do more.
For some people, privacy is the ultimate luxury because they can't get it. The sound of the waves. I think that's one of the most peaceful places on earth, really, by the water. I feel one with it. And it's up to the both of you to achieve really what you're trying to achieve.
This project is really what our mission is all about. A sense of community. The kids worked together.
They deeply thought about the cultural diversity. They related into the geography. They are related into rituals.
Like one little thing that you make can be a part of one huge